Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from RotoWire here to break down today's NFL news and notes from a fantasy football perspective. Let's start out with the Chargers passing attack, the feature of the day. So Josh Palmer is set to see an expanded role. Not a big deal, not a big surprise. We knew it was coming, right? His ADP said it at least. The ADP for Palmer, he was going outside the top 60 wide receivers, which is way down there, but Jalen Guyton was going outside like the top 80 or 90. So basically, fantasy managers knew it was Palmer. However, it's a pretty conservative ranking for a third wide receiver on a team with Justin Herbert. Now they have Austin Eckler too, and we get that. But think about it for a minute. Palmer, first of all, didn't see a lot of snaps last year, and he was used sparingly. But he came on down the stretch. In 3 of his last 5 games, he posted at least 43 yards and a touchdown. All right, big whoop, right? Not a huge deal. But based on the work he was getting, it was notable. Now, when we look at Justin Herbert, we're going to see a few things. He did throw 672 passes last year, obviously right near the top of the league, which was phenomenal. And he had over 5,000 passing yards, no surprise. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were both under 1,200 yards. So it wasn't like we had a 1,600 yard receiver in there, and Austin Eckler certainly did his damage. But Josh Palmer walks into a good situation here. First of all, look, Joshua Kelly apparently is doing pretty well in camp, but he was 3.1 and 3.2 yards per carry. The rookie, Isaiah Spiller, he is injured right now. We don't know if he's going to start the season, but it was that Kelly was ahead of him on the depth chart. Spiller had good buzz early in camp, but then that kind of went away. So what that tells me is maybe the Chargers, for the 3rd year in a row, have made poor choices in trying to replace the early down work for Eckler. Now, Austin Eckler has been on record. He wants somebody to take the rushing load off him. At the end of the day, if that doesn't materialize, Justin Herbert now has nearly an excellent offensive line. The right tackle spot is a little possibly questionable. Trey Pipkins, different reports on him. I think he's okay, but some people who are way smarter than me think he is a bit of a liability. But that right tackle is it. Otherwise, the right guard spot was a real need spot, and they brought in the rookie Zion Johnson with a 1st-round pick, and the center to the left there, phenomenal. So now with 4 potentially very strong linemen, they have the luxury of saying, okay, if we don't have a great rushing attack, maybe we just put the team on Justin Herbert's shoulders. Now, he already threw 672 attempts. How many more could he throw, right? Probably not much more than that. But that said, getting players into the mix. Keenan Allen, his yards per target has fallen off the last couple of years. It's a full couple of yards less than what he had been seeing early in his career. He's still just going to be 30. So he's not certainly old, but we do see those trends going down a bit. And the Chargers coaching staff, I believe they've been making mistakes with Herbert. Herbert throws the ball too short. Now, that's good for Keenan Allen, but Justin Herbert has a big arm, and they do not take a lot of regular shots downfield. The occasional one, yes, but they don't make that a consistent idea against defenses. Therefore, defenses tend to pinch in a little bit. Now, you can't complain. Herbert had 5,000 yards. And now Palmer is going to be in the mix. And I'll get to Mike Williams in a minute. And a lot of people did want Jalen Guyton in because Guyton is much faster, and the concept of stretching the defense seemed to work there. But you know what? Even if defenses pack him, Justin Herbert's already showed us he's got a cannon for an arm. He's got reliable receivers, and he can get the ball in those tight spaces. He's not afraid to do that, and he'll still be able to lead them into space. So I trust Justin Herbert. Honestly, right now, a little nitpicky argument, I think he's the best thing going at quarterback. And I know some people with Patrick Mahomes, I get it. Justin Herbert is such the deal, man. And I really believe, again, nitpicky because Mahomes is amazing as well, right? But so we talked about Keenan Allen. I think he could keep somewhere in that neighborhood of that still 1,100 yards. I think he could keep that. He might have a downtick. If he does, he goes to maybe 1,000. He's still going to have a good season. Where you're drafting him in fantasy drafts, his ADP has gone down a little bit from a past couple of years. So I still think he's reasonable. In the PPR league, he's still going to get it done. And I think you're certainly not hurting. I don't think he's an upside pick at all. I don't think he has a ceiling season left. I think what we're getting, that 11, 50, and 6 or 7 touchdowns, great, but that is like it. You're not going over that like in any scenario that I can see. And then Mike Williams. So Mike Williams was very interesting because last year they were using him so well in like the first 4 or 5 games of the season. They were using him on many different routes, including downfield stuff, and he was consistently winning. And then I don't know if he was injured and it was like underreported, but he was just not getting any good downfield looks for like 7 or 8 weeks. He was just like disappearing. And it was maddening because that hot start, it was very justifiable that it kept going. Now, he didn't smash down the stretch, but they started to get him back involved downfield, especially in that Raiders game in week 18. But Mike Williams really showed that ability to get things done. Now, he had never had more than 89 targets in a season before last year. He ended up like 129 and cashed it into 1,146 yards and 9 touchdowns. It was the first time in his career he had both a good touchdown and good yardage total. He had a 1,000-yard season with few touchdowns. Then he had a lower yardage season with 10 touchdowns, but he finally put it together. But I don't think we've seen near the tip of the iceberg here. I think a lot is going to go forward him in a positive way because I think they really had to think in the offseason. Like we said, they've got to get a little more vertical. And I know Mike Williams isn't fast, but what we saw last year, it doesn't matter. He is a big, great catch point player, and Justin Herbert is going to get him the ball and let him make plays. I don't think the ceiling's insane. I think we can get 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns on Mike Williams. Am I predicting that? No, but I could see that happening. And I understand why fantasy managers have boosted his ADP, bordering like the top 16 receivers. There are other receivers I might like for volume more, but I can't fault anybody for taking Mike Williams high and taking the ride here because he is paired with an amazing quarterback, and we have not seen his best football. That brings us to Palmer. I'm just going with the receivers here. I'm going to leave Eckler out. I love Eckler, but we'll go Palmer here. So Palmer's not a very fast guy. He runs like a 4.5, 140. It's middling, but he has a above average catch radius, above average hands, and that's important because Justin Herbert does see a lot of traffic. But Palmer is the type of player you want in traffic because he has a bigger body, a good catch radius, strong hands, and that's exactly what we're going to see Herbert lean into. So I think it's a very good mesh point between the two. And honestly, and I certainly want Mike Williams and Keenan Allen to be healthy 100% all year. But if for some reason they miss any time, Josh Palmer could see his target share skyrocket. So I think we definitely have to think about that. So it's possible that's an extra benefit. I think getting him at the wide receiver 60, I think that's a screaming value. I think it should be more in the range of wide receiver 53, 54. And I know he's a wide receiver 3, but what are we missing? It's like a great quarterback who's going to throw for 5,000 yards most likely, and Palmer's got to get some of that. So, yeah, love the Chargers passing attack. No issues taking Justin Herbert as the QB2. I think that's a perfect ranking for him. You can't put him ahead of Josh Allen with all that rushing ability he has, and he looks good, too, with his offense. So, no reason to question Josh Allen, of course. All right, injury time. JuJu Smith-Schuster, he had missed practice since August 15th. So at this time, about a week with a knee injury. But Andy Reid says Smith-Schuster's turned a corner. He expects him to be ready for the season. Now JuJu's being drafted inside the top 30 receivers. A lot of people very enamored, understandable, right? Because we know that Patrick Mahomes is going to throw the ball. I was a little concerned in their last preseason game against Washington. And I know it's preseason. Okay, I get it. And when the Chiefs are preparing for the season, they already know they are going to see not just too high. They're going to see like flat out cover 2. They're going to have the lid put over, and they're going to make Patrick Mahomes be patient. And that forcing the patience, I saw it, man. Mahomes, like last year, he just wants to buy time and make the big play. And defenses are taking that from him. Sure, occasionally the big play will be there, but no Tyreek Hill. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, fine, but he's not scaring anybody. He'll have an occasional big play, fine. And like I've been saying for a while, what's Juju's role if Mahomes doesn't throw deep? In the playoff game, he was bombing it down to Justin Watson. Sky Moore, the 2 targets I remember, they both were downfield shots. I was expecting Sky Moore to be an interior force, help get run after the catch, move the chains. That's And Mahomes took a couple of hits in that game too. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you getting him hit? And why are you not running an offense that you're probably going to need to run in the regular season instead of just airing it out? So I have concerns because they're not going to be able to do that. If they're going to throw downfield, that kind of counters what JuJu is for them. JuJu can win very well against zone, and they're going to see the most zone in the league most likely. If they use JuJu well, if they throw underneath, JuJu can put up excellent numbers. So I see the case for taking him as top 30 receiver. It's got to be, though, that Patrick Mahomes is going to be patient enough to take those throws, and that's going to be the crux. So I'm a little bit nervous there. I have other receivers I like who I'm taking over Smith-Schuster, but I understand why people like him. And then you've heard my case forever about Kelce. Great player. He'll be 33. He had 6 bad games last year after only having 2 bad games in the prior 2 years combined. Tyreek Hill is gone. I said nobody's going to fear their receivers. So Kelce's going to get bracketed. He's going to get hit at the line. Defenses are going to try to take away Kelce to make Mahomes go everywhere else. Teams just want to make him uncomfortable. Kelce will still get you 1,000 yards, but he was a 1,300-yard receiver, and he dropped that by 200 to 1,125 last year. He could do something like catch 90 balls for 1,000 yards. But you see, and that's a great season, but you're paying a first-round pick for him. That's why I'm out on Kelce. It's not that he's not going to have a good season, but he is going to be public enemy number 1 for the defenses. And we saw last year, they had success with Tyreek Hill slowing him down. David Montgomery is next here. So he's missed some time with an undisclosed injury. His status for Saturday's preseason game against the Browns will be determined based on his practice participation this week. Now, Montgomery's been going as a wide receiver, running back 21 in average drafts over the last 3 days. Again, Fantasy Mojo ADP. Love Darren Armani and the guys over there do wonderful work. And anyway, with Montgomery, I don't want you to forget, before he was hurt, he was doing some work on special teams returning kickoffs. Now, will that go on during the season? Maybe, maybe not. It's a new coaching staff. Montgomery was living on an 80% snap share, even when after Khalil Herbert went off and Montgomery was hurt, Montgomery came right back into that prominent role. Now, Montgomery's in the last year of his contract. Herbert's still working his way in. He's dealing with some kind of an injury right now. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound like it's long-term. And I am very concerned that we fantasy managers, because of the injury and him not being on the field, have forgotten about him maybe not being the full-time back. So understand, if you're drafting him, there is a world where he goes a 65% snap share, even if he has the lead back instead of 80. And at 65% of David Montgomery behind a horrendous offensive line, call me concerned, and very concerned. And 65-35, could it be 50-50? Because maybe the new coaching staff, maybe they think Herbert's better. Maybe they think they want to see what they have. So again, there is a lot of risk with David Montgomery. Now, if he gets the 80% snap share, you got yourself gold. You got yourself the running back 15, 16 for a low price. That's what you're banking on right now if you're hoping for the upside, okay? Next, Jameson Williams, the rookie. Lions went on the reserve NFI list. He will miss the first 4 games minimum, and we're not quite sure where that goes. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking. The Lions have the benefit of bringing him along. They're not going to challenge for a Super Bowl this year anyway. But if you like Jameson Williams, if you think there's a reason to believe he'll be around in a factor later in the season, yep, Greg, I'm out on him as well. Outside the top 70 receivers for Jameson Williams, if you have an IR spot in your league and you can stash a player, so deep draft, late rounds draft, and put him on IR, I'm good with that. You're not hurting you anyway. He's sitting on your IR, right? You might drop him later. I could see that. I have concerns as to what kind of factor he'll be coming off that injury this year. It's a January 10th injury. And, so like I said, if that's the only scenario I draft Williams, if you're going to stash him on the IR, see what happens, beautiful. And then Gus Edwards is the next one. He's on the reserve pup list. He went on that, and he'll miss again at least the first 4 games of the season. And it was trending that way. It was the news on Gus Edwards was not positive at really all during camp. And as we move forward, it kind of seemed like, yeah, he's probably not going to be around. Now, he has fallen to running back 70 in recent drafts, of course, because people were beginning to assume he wasn't going to be around. And now we see that being the case. Again, could be a buying opportunity. Just like I said with Jameson Williams, if you have IR spots, we know how hard it is to come by running backs. So if you can stash them on IR, and if Gus Edwards is just being prepared to come back later, then great. You might get yourself a top 50, top 45 running back if he's healthy later. If the news is bad, if you got to drop him off your IR later, then go ahead and drop him. But if it's just a thing where he's not quite ready, I say why not? Again, you're not going to spend a premium spot. You're not going to let him sit on a bench in a shallow league because you have no idea if he's going to play. Now, in the short term, is J.K. Dobbins going to go week 1? We keep getting these conflicting reports. If Dobbins is healthy for week 1, I mean, he's got to get 20 plus touches, right? I don't see Mike Davis being a factor. He is below replacement level. And, Tyler Beatty, although I like him, he's a receiving back, and Lamar doesn't throw to his running backs. Justice Hill sitting on the roster. I don't think he's seen more than a handful of targets in his years there. That's testament itself. So I do think if you're going to bet on Dobbins' health, then I think right now, unfortunate for Gus Edwards, love him, and I hope he gets back very soon and 100%. But yeah, that's good news for Dobbins right now because he will get work out of that backfield. And if he's healthy, he showed how dynamic at 6 yards a carry he was a couple of years ago, and I thought he had that kind of talent coming in. Now, Greg Dulcich, the tight end in Denver, number 2 to Albert Okwuegbunam, he's had a hamstring injury. He'll miss the 3rd preseason game. That's the tentative report right now. They're trying to do everything they can to get Dulcich out there for week 1. Why the rush, right? Well, this is why. Tim Patrick, the wide receiver, we know he's out for the season. And we know that KJ Hamler is also on the race to get back. But I think Nathaniel Hackett in that offense, I think they like the idea of running 2 tight ends. If they do that, Dulcich could be a tight end 2, like top 24 or 23-ish tight end. Because he's a good receiver. Okwuegbunam is being moved all over the formation. We talked about him the other day, and people were very concerned that he played the whole preseason game. Coach said he needs the reps. Sounds like a punishment. I didn't think that way. What I thought was they're trying to move him all over the formation. It's a new role for him. Yes, he needs the reps because they're going to be having him do things he did not do as a rookie. So again, I think Okwuegbunam is a great buy. Here's the other benefit. If they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, that likely means defenses have to put an extra linebacker in, 1 less defensive back. So we don't see that nickel defense. Russell Wilson, who likes to get the ball downfield, that could open up the field for him a bit more. So I think 12 personnel could be a very good way to go. If they're running 3 receiver sets, meaning 11 personnel, we get that extra defensive back, and it makes things tougher for Russ. So I do think they really want to do some 12 personnel and let Russ throw out of that. Again, weaponizing Okwuegbunam. Sterling Shepard, I know. We're getting deep here. But look, Sterling Shepard, according to Dan Duggan of The Athletic, he has a chance to be activated from the PUP list before the regular season. Now, ADPs that track 110 receivers out, Shepard's not even cracking that. So here's what I'm going to tell you about Shepard. We know he's a good player when he's on the field. When he's healthy, it isn't always the case. Coming back from an Achilles may not be anything here. Keep an eye on the waiver wire speed dial when the season starts. If he appears to have something going for him, he could get a role in the offense. I mean, again, I wouldn't be doing cartwheels because we got Kenny Galladay, we got maybe Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson. There's a lot of bodies there. But again, deep league, super deep, a guy who, if somebody else misses time, could step in. But again, we're not going to go overboard with Sterling Shepard. It's super deep league, and that's about what we're talking. Job battles. Drew Lock and Geno Smith, according to Pete Carroll, they're in a dead heat. They're running even. Oh, man, what a bad situation to be in for fantasy managers. Here's what I want to say, though. We saw last year, Geno Smith, probably not going to throw a lot downfield. An occasional throw here and there, and that's it. Drew Lock, more of a gunslinger. Both have the inefficiencies as quarterbacks, but Drew Lock does have a live arm. If Drew Lock does get the job, I do think that at least increases the chances for Metcalf and Tyler seeing more downfield looks, and I do think Metcalf is in a better spot, both of them really, if it's Locke, even though Locke will be maybe a worse quarterback, and they could go back and forth all season. But at least in terms of production, I do think he benefits them. That said, it's going to be a run-heavy team because that's the way Pete Carroll's going to have it. Pass attempts are going to be fairly low. Metcalf's ADP has really fallen. He's a borderline wide receiver, too, with all that talent in a horrible situation. I'm finding a hard time clicking, yes, when he's on the draft board and he's coming up in that third, fourth round. That gets me a little bit nervous. So right now, I hate to say it too, because I just love DK Metcalf, want to see him unlocked. Maybe not this year. Kickers. All right. I get it. All right. Kickers. But if you're in a league with kickers, Greg Zuerlein is the only kicker on the Jets roster now. And what I like about this is the Jets look to be a team that might be able to move the ball some. They have quarterback issues. But maybe that's good for a kicker, right? If you move the ball and you break down the red zone, you're kicking field goals. So I like to target those kickers. If I'm not going to get those high-end ones where the teams are scoring 35 points a game, giving me a floor, I like the teams that are emerging enough but not there yet to get me field goals. Because, hey, three's over one. Definitely like that. So what I say is, and if you get distance bonuses, it's called Greg the Leg for a reason, right? And then finally, another kicker up there, Brett Maher is the only kicker now on the Dallas roster. And look, Dallas projects to be a fairly decent scoring offense. And if that's the case, again, top 12 in a 12-team league, definitely go with that. All right, we have one question in the house. If anybody else has them, you can post them. And once I answer these, we will move out. Homer Simpson. All right. Hey, yes, you got offered Kelsey, A.J. Brown, and Kareem Hunt for Kamara, Zeke, and Godwin, assuming it's a one-year league. Kamara is going to get a ton of work. His efficiency went down as a runner, 3.7 yards per carry. Defense is looking. Now they have some passing game weapons, so we might get a little less attention on him. So I think that bodes well. I don't think we'll ever see the passing game explosiveness we saw earlier in his career because Sean Payton and Drew Brees as a combo between designing plays in space and 2 years ago and beyond. Brees just being a master of the screen game. He and Phillip Rivers, two of the best screen game quarterbacks I can remember seeing. But again, Kamara put up over 1,300 yards. I think it was in like 13 games last year. So we love that. Zeke is going to get you volume. There's no question. Even last year with a sprained PCL over half the season, he got his touches. Knee healthy. Remember, when he was healthy last year, Zeke was putting up over 96 yards a game and scoring touchdowns. So he still had it. But people are looking at him with a sprained PCL. Well, of course he didn't play well. He was very badly injured, but he didn't miss time. So anyway, Zeke's nice. And then Godwin, look, Godwin, he's supposed to be back. I do have a little concern about an ACL and a high agility guy. That could be a little problematic. But yet, if he's on the field, Brady's going to get him the ball. So I think those three players all stack up well. And on the other side, see, Kelsey, I talked about him earlier in the show. I really think he dropped to 1125 yards last year, which is 200 below his previous 3-year baseline he had been getting. And teams were beating him up at the line of scrimmage. They couldn't bracket him so much because Tyreek Hill was still there. And occasionally they double him. And Kelsey had 6 bad games last year. He only had 2 total bad games the prior 2 years. So we started seeing he'll be 33 a month into the season. So Kelsey could catch 90 balls, and they could just go for like 1,000 yards. He could drop another 100 yards or still see a lot of catches. So again, still have an edge at tight end, but he's not quite what he was. A.J. Brown is going to be difficult because according to camp, they are getting him the ball. He is supposed to be the explosive playmaker he's intended to be, and there is risk-reward with him because, look, I think he's my favorite receiver. I call him Terrell Owens version 2.0, and he's that good. But they have to get him the ball consistently, and he has that injury history. He just keeps missing games and playing hurt in others and not performing. So it's just the consistency has never been there. Now he's on a new team, and I do assume he'll get targets, but Philly could have that propensity of going run heavy. So it's a little risk, although I love him. And then Kareem Hunt is just one of those things. Unless he gets dealt, Nick Chubb is the guy. Hunt will have his good games. You don't know when. I think the safer three are Kamara, Zeke, and Godwin. But, yeah, no, I'm going to say that because even upside, I think you would need Hunt to have a break that's unlikely, right? Chubb miss a lot of time. He gets traded in the right situation. So I kind of like the Kamara, Zeke, and Godwin side right here just because Kelsey, I think, is going to have a little bit difficulty reaching those old plateaus. I love AJ. We'll go to Randy's in the house. Randy, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm glad you're here. 12-team, half PPR. At what point in the first round do you consider a non-running back? You know what, Randy? I'm loving me some Dalvin Cook this year. But I'll tell you what. All right. So I will say this. If I have the 2 pick, it's Justin Jefferson most of the time. I'll take him there. Aside from Justin Jefferson, though, I'm going running backs for a while because here's my point on Dalvin Cook. I want you to hear this, Randy. I don't know if you've been following my stuff recently. So Dalvin Cook, for years, in Mike Zimmer's offense, they were running inside zone. He was inside the middle of the field. You're welcome, Homer. In the middle of the field, he's taking a lot of big hits. And defenses always had an extra linebacker on the field because they didn't think Mike Zimmer's teams were going to throw the ball, right? So Cook had the double-edged sword working against him. Now they bring in the offense from the Rams. This is an outside zone. I think Dalvin Cook will be much better here, getting the cuts to the outside, also getting away from those inside linebackers. The hits will come more on the outside linebackers, safeties, corners, things like that. He'll also, when he needs to get to the sideline, he'll have an easier opportunity to avoid some of those big hits. And they have a real robust screen game in this offense. And Dalvin Cook has only had one great season as a receiver, never been properly deployed. So when I hit that 2 pick, I'm either Justin Jefferson or Dalvin Cook. And look, I'm picking as late as 10. Cook has fallen there. Cook is coming at 8. So honestly, as long as Dalvin Cook's there, I'm taking him. And when I get near there, the end of the first round, after Cook's off the board, then I'm flirting like with CeeDee Lamb. And I actually, CeeDee Lamb, like 160, 170 targets. I'm thinking that's almost a certainty. So I do, I have him ahead of Devontae Adams. I actually have him ahead of Steph Diggs. I think that CeeDee Lamb is a superstar who's going to really blow it up this year. And so that's kind of where I sit on that. I hope that helps, Rand. You can always DM me if you got a further question. All right, guys. Well, 25 minutes a little later than the boss is like. All right, good to see everybody. Have a great rest of your day.